Welcome to part 4 of Kaiserreich for Hoi 4 lore. And again, this part is non-canon. And you know the drill already. Alright, so with Weltkrieg 2.0 going on, Russia invades Georgia and the Don-Kuban Union, since no one's gonna stop them. The Western Front is pretty much a bloodbath, with no side really able to gain the upper hand. But the Germans did see some success in capitulating the Italian Commune by 1940. So remember those salty Quebecois and Canadian liberals I talked about earlier? Well, they finally rise up in rebellion, with some support, starting the Canadian Civil War. After invading all those small countries, Russia decides to invade Germany. Since they were still pissed about the Brest-Litovsk Treaty, things start to go well for Germany, however, in August of that year, when the Western Front stalemate finally breaks, and Germany rushes into the interior of France. War also spread to South and Central America. Again, when the American Union State and the USCA invade and defeat the syndicalist Central America. Then, later in the year, war breaks out between Brazil and La Plata. Back in Russia, things start to go bad for them when they aren't able to push very far into the German Empire's eastern client states, and then when the Don-Kuban Union takes Zarzhian. At the start of 1941, the Dominion of India and the Bahraini Commune merged to form the Neutral Republic of India. This part doesn't really make sense to me though, because it'd be like North and South Korea uniting today, but hey, I'm just reading the source material. But back to the Second Weltkrieg, where Germany finally takes Paris by March, and then Marseille by July, which forces the French to surrender and sign the Second Treaty of Versailles, which basically balkanized France into a bunch of German client states. With France out of the war, Germany puts their full attention to the east. By September, the United Baltic Duchy reaches Petrograd, and by March of 1942, the Germans did what the our timeline Germans couldn't, and take Moscow. A little after this, the Ottomans finally surrendered to the Arabian Axis, and are partitioned between the victors. Over in Canada, the Civil War finally ends, with the Confederationists coming out on top. Just, they're basically a puppet of the neutral American Union state. Back in Russia, with the situation lost, the Russians finally surrender and sign the Second Treaty of Brest-Litovsk. Russia has actually let off relatively well, with only some minor concessions to the German eastern client states, and then the Don-Kuban Union. Still, Kaiser Willy isn't just content to sit around, not invading anyone, so he teams up with Japan to invade the Chinese states to reunify them as a friendly client state. The king ended up surrendering before the end of 1942, and joined the Republic of China. In South America, the Argentinians end up winning the Plantain War after Brazil's government collapses. But karma's kind of a bitch to the Argentinians when just the next year, their president dies and the nation collapses into a bunch of warlord states. I choose to believe it's like Hispanic Mad Max down there. Later that year, the newly reunited Chinese Republic decides to invade Mongolia. Remember that Mongolia is still ruled by a Russian man, who I made a video about, that thinks he's Genghis Khan reborn. The Russians also invade at the same time since they want to boost morale after having had their asses handed to them by the Germans. It takes about a year and 250,000 Russian deaths to finally defeat the Mongolians, which pisses off the Russian populace. Khrushchev ends up returning to Russia and inciting a socialist rebellion. Around the same time, Mexico decided it's a great idea to invade the Pacific states. Unfortunately for them, they forgot that American Union State was a thing, and probably wouldn't be okay with this, so the AUS ends up intervening. It only takes a few months before Mexico surrenders and gives up Baja California to the PSA. In January of 1944, Romania finally stops its oil shipments to Germany. Germany isn't very happy about this, and well, the following war goes just as well as you'd expect. And Romania is turned into a German puppet with the deposed king put back on the throne. Speaking of Germany, the Germans established the Jewish Republic in Madagascar in response to the rising anti-Semitism in Europe. Some of you might ask, well, what about the natives of Madagascar? Well, just like our time is next subject. At the beginning of 1945, Huey Long passes the New America Act, basically passing a bunch of populist reforms. Still, things aren't going well for other dictators, as Savinkov is forced to promise free elections to the Russian people starting in 1946. So, to end off the episode, Wilhelm II dies in July of 1945 and is succeeded by Wilhelm III. Remember that you can go play Kaiserreich over on the Steam Workshop for Hoi 4. Thanks to Patreon Skylar Weston and HeliPilot.